Vandeham Shri Guru.
So start with the story. There was a king and he had 4 wives. So this is not a real story, but it's an analogy. So the king loved his 4th wife very much. And the 1st wife, he really never noticed that she existed. And then the 3rd wife, he wanted to like show off to all the parties wherever he would go to, like, oh, this is my trophy wife. And the 2nd wife was somebody he cared a lot about. I can't remember the 2nd wife. Okay, but he had 4 wives. And it is described that the 4th wife is the body. So the body, we hold it very close to us, the dearest thing to us. We dress it nicely, we clean it, we apply all kinds of lotions. Everything practically we do is for this body. The 3rd wife is possessions. So that's basically our trophies, our money, our car, houses, whatever we have. We show off to others, look what I have. And then we have the friends and family. These are the people who, we are surrounded by constantly, who say nice things to us and we say nice things back to them. And thus the relationship continues. There is one more friend. I'll get there, who that friend is. So what happened when the king was on his deathbed, he asked his wives, and he was very scared because death is a very, very scary time. So he was asking his wives, are you going to come with me when I die? And the queens were like, the 4th queen especially, he asked, like, will you come with me? She said, no, as soon as you die, I have all your property, I'm going to enjoy, I'm going to get married soon to somebody else, so I don't care. The 3rd wife was, I'm not coming either. The 2nd wife, she was like, I'll come all the way to the cemetery, but I won't go anything beyond that. And then he was very, sad. It's like, I spent all these years, taking care of all my wives, and they never cared. And to him, it never even made any mark that there was a 1st wife that he had. Didn't even notice her. And she said, don't worry, I'll be with you. Throughout the process, wherever you go, I'm going to be with you. So that 1st wife is a soul. Is that who we are? The eternal, spiritual being that we are. That's the soul. And the soul is traveling from one body to another, from one situation to another, for time immemorial. And so, since the last few weeks we've been talking about soul a lot, talking about the eternality aspect. So that's the basis of all our understanding, is that we're conscious beings. There is a soul. So I'll speak a little bit more about this. So if we look at the mirror and ask this question to ourselves, who am I? One might come up with many, many answers. Someone might say, I'm a man, I'm a woman, I'm a student, I'm an IIT student, I'm Indian, American, engineer. So there are many, many answers, but there is, but who am I really? And that question is where all the Vedic teachings begin. Starts with that question of who am I? And generally, like the 4th wife, we think that this is who we are. And that's given this body that we think that we are, is made up of these elements. And they all add up to around $20, which is not what we are worth. We are worth more than that, I would hope. But if we really think we're this body that is, constantly changing, constantly dying, actually. Every moment, the body is dying. Every second, there are cells dying, new cells are being born. So it is said that over a 7-year period, we actually get a new body. Every cell has been replaced. And so it's like, so a lot of people would disagree that no, we are this body, there is nothing called soul. Why? Because we cannot perceive it, we cannot see it, so there must be no soul. is just a bunch of chemicals acting and reacting, and does emotions and whatnot flow. We are just a giant big machine. Now today morning we were hearing a lecture by our founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada. He was saying that if you look at a car and just wow, what a wonderful car, and it's moving by itself and it's doing everything by itself, and you don't recognize the driver, then it just shows you have very less intelligence. And you know what, for a child, the child might think, oh, that big train is moving by itself. But for an adult who has knowledge, he knows that there is a person who's moving the train, whose intelligence is acting, and thus the train is moving at a certain speed, or a car is moving at a certain speed. And there is an engineer for that car. There's an engineer for the train. Things that move in perfect, act in perfect laws and motion cannot just act randomly. So just like our seasons are changing right now, we're going to be in spring soon. Our earth is moving in a particular way, in a particular order. Little change, and we're all either burned or will freeze to death. So there is somebody behind all this. There is a higher intelligence. Another way to explain the same thing is when that same car is crashed. It might be a $20,000 car, but we go in to save the person in the car, because the person is priceless. The value of the human life is priceless. So what is that value of human life? It's the person. It's that soul, the eternal, unchanging soul, as the Vedas describe. So that's what's more important than the machine. But the body is also a machine, and the body also dies. So in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna when he starts speaking, Arjuna speaks for the first chapter, why he should not fight. He gives 5 very nice moral reasons why not to fight. And when Krishna starts speaking, he accepts a position from a friend to a spiritual master. And a teacher is somebody who corrects a student. So as a teacher, he starts here. Dehi navasmin yatha dehe komaram jovanam jas tha deham tara prapta dhira satrana mukti. So this body is constantly changing from childhood to youth, to adolescence, to youthhood, to old age, death. The thing that doesn't change is that sense of I. I am not changing. It's a body that's changing. So there's a clear distinction between the body and the self. So in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna chastises Arjuna because Arjuna's 5 moral reasons were based on the body. They're my relatives. How can I fight this war? There's going to be so much unwanted progeny because all the women are going to be without their husbands. So he gives very, very nice moralistic answers, but they're all in the bodily platform. He does not talk about the soul on the spiritual platform. So Krishna starts here. And so we'll also start here. So we'll go through this in slide form, but it's actually chapter 2 of Bhagavad Gita. So that's the soul. That's us. And it's a spiritual being, just like God. So there is similarity and there is dissimilarity, simultaneously acting. The soul is just like God in qualities. So it is eternal, cognizant, and blissful. Eternal. The soul never dies. We never die. We are the soul. So I'm repeating that. We never die. The body dies. Same with God. God never dies. Some philosophers said science killed God or man killed God, but God never dies. So Krishna is eternal, so are we. Cognizant. We're aware of things. Even if a mosquito sits on the tip of our toe, we're aware of it. Anything that happens in the body, we're aware of it. But we cannot say we're aware of what's happening in the mind of somebody else. But again, God is supremely conscious. He's aware of everything, every individual, every creation in the entire creation. Blissful. That is questionable. Right? We're not always blissful. Rarely blissful. And that's because we are materially affected, where our consciousness is somewhere else. But the spiritual platform, it's on the body, which is dead anyway. The body is live because there is a soul. As soon as the soul leaves, it's a dead body. And we say so and so passed away. So But when one is on the spiritual platform, Krishna says, Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma na shochati na kamshati. One who's on the spiritual platform, he never laments, he never hankers, and he is always blissful. Why? Because the soul is eternal. And there is relationship. From a spiritual perspective, there is relationship. Relationship of the soul with the Supreme. And there is interaction. And through that interaction, one is nourished from inside. So whether one has 25 cars or not, whether one has a very large bank balance or not, it doesn't matter. In fact, people who have a lot of things are not happy. And people who don't have a lot of things are also not happy. So when we are living a life which is going towards, okay, let me have more stuff, it's not necessarily we are going to be more happy. Because there is many examples for time immemorial where people have stuff and they're not happy. Because we are feeding the body. It's like a fish out of water. A fish belongs in the water. You take the fish out, put it in a nice Rolls Royce. It might be a gold-plated Rolls Royce. The fish is not going to be able to breathe. It's not going to be happy. So you take this person and you put it in all kinds of material opulence, the person is not going to be happy unless there is a spiritual connection, unless there's a concept of God. So going further, the soul in the conditioned state, which is where we are, not in its original state, but in the conditioned state, it is covered by something called the subtle body. The subtle body is the mind, intelligence, and falsity. So sometimes we joke around. We talk about ghosts. We talk about ghosts in the form of subtle bodies, because that's what it is. It's the ghost is nothing but a subtle body. It's the soul encaged in mind, intelligence, ego, moving from one body to another. But there is some accident or something, and according to karmic reaction, it stops. So this person has to wait till he gets another body, he or she. So there's a subtle body. And then there is this body that we can see, the gross body that we can touch, which is made up of earth, water, fire, air, ether. Earth, we have all kinds of elements in our body. Carbon, manganese, iron, you name it, we have everything. All the elements are there. Water, of course, large quantity of water. For some people more, some people less, but there's a lot of water in the body. Fire, we have a temperature, 98.6 Fahrenheit. Air, yes, we're breathing in, breathing out. There is a lot of air in the body. There are multiple kinds of air in the Ayurveda. I'm not going to go into, but there are airs in the body. And there's space. There's intermolecular space. There's space in the body. So these things, these 5 Panchbhuta elements, they make up the gross body. And then, coming under the influence, again, forgetting that we are spiritual beings, we start this journey, the pursuit of happiness. Now, it is only natural to be happy because the soul is blissful. But because we don't have the knowledge of the soul, and we're not in touch with their spirituality, we are in the fish out of water. The fish, is being put in Rolls Royce and this and that in pursuit of happiness. So let's say what the Vedas say about this. It's in this Hitopadesh. It is said, Ahara Nitra Bhaya Maithunam Cha Samanya Metat Pashubhir Nara Dharmo Hitesham Adhiko Vishesho Dharmena Hina Pashubhir. So, most of us are Indians here. Ahar means food, Nidra means sleep, Bhaya means fear, Maithunam means sex. Samanya Metam Pashu means animal. So these 4 things are there in animals, they're also in humans. The distinction between animals and humans is Dharmo Hitesham Adhikya Vishesham. Vishesh means special. What is special about us? We can inquire into the absolute. We can inquire about something higher than eating, sleeping, sex, life, and defense. Animals and all living entities do this. Even plants do that. But a human being has a spirit of inquiry, which is a loose definition of dharma. That's a loose definition underlined, because dharma has a more stronger definition, which I'll get to later. So a cat never asks the question, why is there suffering? Why, how can I be happier? A cat is happy. give it the fish, milk, whatever, take care of the cat, it's happy. Doesn't care much. But us, we go into all kinds of things. We want to find out about the intricacies of life. We are very inquisitive, right? There are scientific explorations, space explorations, there are adventurers who go on the mountain, people who go in the water to see what's there. So there is always this sense, a fish, we never see in our house, fishes coming and see what these guys are doing. But human beings do that. We go into everywhere because we have this sense of inquiry. It's only natural to the personality. But because we are in the bodily conception, we don't have, in most cases, we don't have the spiritual knowledge. All these explorations are back to looking for how to have better eating, better sleeping, better mating, and better defending. So pretty much, all this inquiry, all this intelligence, all these things are geared towards eating, sleeping, mating, defending, an animalistic life. So the Vedas are very strong. It says, Dvipada Pashu, two-legged animals, unless one questions life. It's I don't know if you can see it, right? But that's a goat. That's a butcher, and that's that goat's friends hanging over there. Okay, the body of the goat's friends are hanging over there. And this goat is happily enjoying grass. So that's how our lives are. We think we'll never die, or maybe 50, 60 years from now we'll die. There's no guarantee to that. Nobody has told us that we're going to live forever. But we live like that. We enjoy life. Not realizing any moment it can end. We don't even have to step out. Some car can come crashing and something can happen. Any moment. But it's like that goat. It's happily eating the grass, not thinking that what has happened to my friends will happen to me next. But one who's spiritually conscious prepares for such a thing. It is going to happen. We all know that. So why not prepare for it? So in the Vedanta Sutra, this is where spiritual life begins. Athata Brahma Jigyasa. Therefore now, inquire into the Absolute. So the now is an important word because now that we have a human form of life, inquire into the Absolute. Because the 6 billion or 7 billion humans that we are, it's a very rare species. If you think how many plants are there, how many insects are there, how many birds are there, many more than human beings. How many bacteria and viruses are there? There are more viruses here than the entire population of Earth, of humans. So, where does this begin? What are the problems of life? And again, the Vedas are very, very specific. First, it defines the problem. The problem is something that nobody wants, but everybody has to face it. Because somebody can say, one man's problem is another man's pleasure and profit. But problems are such that everyone has to face, no one can avoid it, and there are 4 such problems. Death. Everybody faces it. We're all fearful of death. You look at the squirrel, you look at the birds, you look at the deers. Of course, humans, we have spent so much money on defense because we are scared. There's fear. Ahara nidra bhaya mitra. Eating, sleeping, mating, defending. So defense is a big part. We are scared of death. Death is a big problem. Our death, death of our loved ones. Old age. And this might be completely unrelated. We are young, all of us are young. So it's like, that's going to come, whenever. But it does come, and it does get really bad. One thing, I was talking to somebody at my work, and he was saying, oh man, I'm going to save so much money. And my mother, she saved all her life. And she now is sitting on $1 million in Florida. I'm going to do that one day. I'm like, okay, can your mother hear properly? He's like, not really. Can she see properly? No. Okay. Can she eat up? So senses are practically gone. So all this is for, our lives constantly for such gratification. Eat nice things, hear nice things, see nice things, touch nice things. But when you're old, all those things are gone. But the desire is still there. It's very painful. It's like you're in a cage and you cannot do much about it. That's the old age. And by the way, there are billions of dollars spent on how to stop old age, Botox and this and that, implants. Disease. Nowadays, from a very young age, people are diseased. There's diabetes and all these things. Heart disease is happening from young age. Old, young, doesn't matter. We all have disease. It's not very nice. I have a friend that came over today to Krishna House. He's only 20 years old, and he has a fatal disease. So practically his body attacks him. It considers whatever food he eats, sometimes it goes wrong. And doctors don't know how to identify what's wrong with him. It's just he starts shaking and he has to be like put in emergency, and it's like pretty fatal. And so that's disease that's happening to everybody. And as I said, that in our lifetimes, cancer will go to a point where it will be 50% cancer rate. So 1 out of 2 people would get cancer. And it all starts with birth. Everybody is very happy when a child is born. But the Vedas give the perspective, what happens from the child's perspective. It is very difficult. Squeezing through the tunnel, coming out of the mother, being hung upside down for so many months. Whatever, if mother eats something spicy, the child suffers very much, sour. All these food they eat, it suffers. The child is suffering constantly, not able to breathe. And as soon as it comes out, new environment, it's just very painful. So it starts with birth, and it goes on through life, death, old age, disease. So Srimad Bhagavatam says the rare human form of life, which although temporary, affords one the opportunity to attain the highest perfection. So we talked about in karma theory class that karma is accrued only in the human form, and it is expended into all the other 8.4 million species of life. But only in the human form we acquire karma. And only in the human form of life we have the perfect balance of happiness and distress, that we can question life, take up the process of yoga, and end this cycle of birth, death, old age, disease, and go back to the spiritual kingdom of God called Vaikuntha. A human being is meant for inquiry about the absolute. So, repetition. So multiple Vedic scriptures talk about this very important thing, that we should ask questions. It's all about inquiring with the absolute. That is what makes us human. It's okay to be a software programmer or doctor or engineer. Those are also inquiries, but inquiring with the absolute knowledge, spiritual knowledge, is what this life is meant for. Otherwise, whatever we do, we might be very successful materially. At the time of death, we're all going to be losers. So, how do you gain this knowledge? Where do you go? So, there is a very important principle of accepting a spiritual master, a guru. So, in our case, in the Hare Krishna movement, we had Srila Prabhupada, who at the age of 70 came to the West, came to the United States, because his spiritual master had told him, go to the West and reach out to the English-speaking community in English. So he wrote more than 80 books, translated them from Sanskrit to English. So Bhagavad Gita as it is, Srimad Bhagavatam, 18,000 verses. This has 700 verses. Krishna books, so many, Chaitanya Charitamrita. He has Ishopanishads. So he has written multiple books. Practically he would sleep 2 hours a day, and he would write through the night. During the day he would be busy spreading the movement worldwide. So in 12 years this movement spread in more than 108 countries. At the age of 70, imagine that. He came only with 40 rupees and a box of cereals at Srimad Bhagavatam. So that's quite inspiring. And who is a guru? A guru who has knowledge of the absolute. Somebody who's seen the truth, who's an embodiment of the knowledge of the absolute. Adept in imparting it to others. Someone who knows something, that person can explain it. A lot of times I get to hear from people, oh, so-and-so is a great speaker. Oh, what did you understand? No, it was too high-fi, it went over my head. But I could tell it was something really amazing. That's not a guru. A guru is somebody who can answer any question and explain things to anybody. And so when he came, his audience was a bunch of hippies who were completely drugged out. And from the hippies, they became sannyasis. Transformation. And for the last 40 years, they've dedicated their lives to the movement. And it's not just there were hippies. Later on, there were scientists and doctors and many people joined. Like I said, it spread very fast all over the world. But nevertheless, no matter what culture, no matter what language, no matter which part of the world, the Hare Krishna movement spread very fast, and today it is spreading and it is being accepted. It's not the easiest thing to do. Giving up eating, meat, giving up illicit sex, giving up intoxication, giving up gambling. It's not easy, especially for those that are used to it, are born into it. But why? How do they give it up? By higher taste. So that is what the Bhagavad Gita says. So one who understands spiritual knowledge, when the fish is put back in the water, nothing else matters. The Rolls Royce looks like a piece of metal, garbage. Because water is so much more, that's where you can breathe, that's where you're happy. So a spiritual master transforms us from the mode of sense gratification to self-realization. So right now in the material consciousness, we are constantly after, let's put it this way, we are after reducing the stress of the senses. Eye says, I want to see something, I want to watch a movie or whatever, I want to touch this, I want to eat this, I want to sleep. Constantly we are trying to satisfy the senses. And whatever comes out of that little relief, we think that's happiness. That's actually not happiness. That is just a relief from a misery. Self-realization is understanding oneself and understanding the Supreme. And that's when we realize true love, and from negative to zero to positive happiness. That's where it begins. And one who does not know this keeps going back in the material realm to find happiness. And spirituality should not be something that's, hokey philosophy. You sit in an armchair and you smoke a cigar and you talk about philosophy. No, it is practical. Srila Prabhupada went around the world 14 times from age 70 till he lived at, I think, 80-something years old. And wherever he went, he spoke about Krishna. He spoke about the philosophy without any change, without any. Many people told him, maybe you should change the dress, maybe you should make things a little softer because this philosophy is very strong. No, he didn't make any compromise. It's as it is, he gave it up. And with practice, here it is. So Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, jnana, theoretical knowledge, becomes vijnana, realized knowledge, when put into practice. And we see this in our college life, right? We have theory classes and we have practical classes. We go to our labs and try those theories out, and it makes sense. This is how it works. So it's like that in spiritual life too. We read the Bhagavad Gita, we practice in our life, and there are so many aha moments. And actually, if you read the Bhagavad Gita 100 times, 1,000 times, 1,000,000 times, every time you read, you will have many aha moments, because it's spiritual in nature. It's not temporary, doesn't degrade with time, doesn't become old. The depth of knowledge in Bhagavad Gita is infinite. So the more you read, the deeper realizations you get. That's the glory of spiritual knowledge. Whereas, for example, a constitution or a law book, one can read, well, it has to change every year because it has to fit in with all the mistakes that are made in it. There are no mistakes. 5,000 years, still going strong, still very applicable. Now, there's a significance of the Bhagavad Gita. Where was this, why was it spoken and where was it spoken? On a battlefield. Krishna and Arjuna, standing in a battlefield, about to start the greatest war of mankind. There are 300 million soldiers on each side. A little bit more on the other side. In Pandav said there's 300-something million soldiers. And, generally, when we talk about Krishna consciousness, we invite people to VVS. People say, oh, I'm so busy. Maybe another week or maybe something. Now, Krishna and Arjuna were in their busiest moment. They were about to fight a war. But it took out 45 minutes. Krishna spoke the Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna, and Arjuna was ready to fight. From a position where he was crying and trembling, and this is a fierce warrior, to the position where he was like, I'm ready to fight for you, Krishna. So this means the message is very urgent. It is an urgent message. Why? Because the house is on fire. What house is on fire? You don't see any house on fire. The house, meaning our life, is temporary. Any time death can come. It's like walking through a dark tunnel. and the train that's coming without any lights and is completely silent. Anytime it can hit you. So this message is very urgent to know, to be prepared. And even Krishna, who is God, he accepted a spiritual master because this is the principle. And Yadit Acharati Srishta. Those who are the Srishtas, or the leaders, or people who we emulate, they should follow what they speak. So Krishna, he follows what he preached. He accepted a spiritual master. Of course, he graduated much faster than us. 64 days, he completed every single thing that you could think of. So what are the qualities of a guru? How to recognize a guru? Guru is somebody who is self-realized, realized conclusion of the scriptures through deliberation. In parampara, he has a guru. One has to have a guru. One cannot be a self-nominated guru. Just like one cannot be a self-nominated doctor. One has to go to medical school, learn, get a residency, then one gets a certificate to practice medical science. Lawyer, same thing. So one cannot. We see this a lot. People just, can speak very nicely in very poetic ways, and they stand up and say, I'm a guru, or I'm God, or whatever nonsense they want to say, they say it. And many people follow. They give a lot of money, and then, I don't know what they get out of it, but there is a lot of this happening. So a guru should be somebody who has a guru, and that should be traceable all the way back to the source of knowledge, Krishna. So the Bhagavad Gita, at the end of the introduction, you can see all the teachers are listed. Srila Prabhupada and all the way to Krishna, you can trace where this knowledge is coming from. So just like an unbroken chain, just like a mailman delivers a mail without changing anything inside. So a guru, or the disciplic succession, Guru Shishya Parampara, they deliver the message without change, without interpretation. And because the message is eternal, it doesn't need to be changed. It can be explained in different languages, but the essence remains the same. And one who has sense control. So control over speech, mind, anger, tongue, belly, and genitals. We see a lot of, especially from India, we see a lot of godmen, getting into all these sex scandals and all kinds of nonsense. And it's just disgusting. So what happens is, first day people are like, oh, you're awesome, you're wonderful, you're so knowledgeable. And next day they're throwing shoes at the person. Both are fools. Person who's cheating is a fool. Persons who are throwing shoes, they're also fools. Because we are supposed to, as students, we are supposed to really look into, like when you apply to IIT, you make sure it has accreditation, it has good professors, it has good labs, it has a good credibility. So when you graduate from IIT, you have something that means something, and not just a sheet of paper. So like that, as students, we should also question, where is this knowledge coming from? Is this man really a genuine person? Or does he sound good? Does he follow what he preaches? For me, I did that for 3 years with my teacher. I tried all kinds of things to really see if this is the right person. And then, once that is done, then one can accept all the teachings. But that is an important process. Now, how does one do that? Krishna gives very nicely. Tadvati pranipratina pariprashnena sevaya upadikshanti te jnanam jnanena sattvadarshana. Just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master. Inquire from him submissively and render service unto him. The self-realized souls can impart knowledge unto you because they have seen the truth. So there are 3 qualities Krishna talks about. Humility, inquiry, and service. So humility is, I don't know, I want to know. Having an open mind. Inquiry, one should be thinking through things. One should, have intelligence to ask questions. One should try it out and come back. I tried this, it worked like this. Is it right? Or it didn't work. What should I do? At service, help the person who's teaching you, help him help you. That is service. So it can be, like at VVS, I'm teaching my teacher. He's in India right now, so that's why I'm speaking here. Many of us are helping in different ways of marketing it, publicizing it, helping to make the prasadam, the food. So everybody is helping in some way or form. And this helps receive the knowledge. This is a principle. So humility. Because otherwise what happens, if you come with a challenging spirit, you already have the answer in your mind. and you're not open to hearing something that's coming towards you. Somebody will be giving you all the answers, but you keep repeating because you're attached to your own idea. Humility means you have an open mind, you have an open slate, and you let it flow. Try it out. If it doesn't work, go to the next one. My spiritual master, he tried, he read the Quran, he read the Bible, he read Zen Buddhism, multiple things. He read actually 4 different Bhagavad Gitas before he came to Bhagavad Gita as it is. Because anybody who's a little knowledgeable about Sanskrit wants to write a purport about Bhagavad Gita, whether they know anything about Krishna or not. And they'll write whatever their mind wants. This is not in disciplic succession. So, when he read the Bhagavad Gita as it is, immediately everything was clear as water. Everything made sense. Because Krishna speaks very nicely, very crisp. Bhagavad Gita is very crisp. There is no wishy-washy answer. It's very black and white. And for that we need a teacher. So how do we get started? Well, we already chanted the holy name. Associate with people who practice this. Then we study the books that Srila Prabhupada has translated for us. And we eat food that has been offered to Krishna. So we have Krishna lunch program Monday to Friday. Right? So the food that has been given out is vegetarian food, A. B, it has been offered to God. So it has spiritual potency to help us understand spiritual subject matter better. Okay. I'll stop. Any questions? I will extend. Shoaib, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Question about what you said about Bhagavad Gita, and I mean, I'm sort of paraphrasing, but you said that if you were to go through Bhagavad Gita, it should have no mistakes, which is why it should be fundamental for human life. I'm sort of paraphrasing what you said that.
Can you repeat that one more time? It's a long
Bhagavad
sentence.
Gita is supposed to, Bhagavad Gita is that you said that it should not have any mistakes, and that's why human life, it should be the basis for our lives, or something.
I don't think I said that. And there is no mistakes. It's not that it should not have mistakes. Bhagavad Gita does not have any mistakes.
Okay. Alright, I'll start with that. I mean, the main thing that I'm coming at is if it doesn't have any mistakes, at least from a social thing about how we interact with others, then, I mean, because we're all engineers, we all like doing things empirically and so on. I mean, one of the things that all of us should be asking as empiricists is that, like, what would be the, how should I say, is there like any sociological evidence? Because, like, there's a subject called sociology which studies how people interact with each other and which mode is best and which mode should be adopted. So are you familiar with any such study done on Bhagavad Gita by chance?
Yeah, that's what the Hare Krishna movement is. It represents that. So I'll give you multiple examples. One is all our schools. All over the world we have schools, gurukuls we call it, where a child from very young age till they come to whatever time they finish their education. A lot of times it's actually by 12 they're ready to go to college because it's just so fast, and there's a lot of, it's done according to how Bhagavad Gita says how we should deal with each other. So there is no punishment, there is no chastisement, only love, and children grow up in a very Krishna conscious environment and they excel way beyond what we see in public schools or private schools. They learn not just academics, they learn extracurriculars like horse riding, archery, things like that. And when they grow up, practically almost 99% tend to be exemplary personalities, exemplary citizens. We don't have any criminals that come out of these colleges or schools. That's one. And by the way, there are many skin colors and many nationalities that are represented in the Hare Krishna movement. In Chicago alone, it's called Chicago, we have 40 plus nationalities represented. If you cover the Sunday, you will see, actually we have a lot of, most of the Chicago universities come to our temple for sociology studies. Sociology students come, like 20 of them, and they interview all of us because it's such a phenomenon where black, Hispanic, Chinese, Indian, Iranian, all kinds of nationalities who don't speak the same language, who don't come from the same background, are working together for one purpose. And they're very happy, and they're very loving. And if any new person comes, immediately they becomes part of the family. It's a 300 people family every Sunday. you cannot tell, that these are, people from completely different backgrounds, but it's happening. In places like Africa, where there are a lot of racial discrimination and racial wars, it's incredible to see what's happening there. The Hare Krishna movement is exploding, and it's all, again, people of all different tribes, all different skin colors, working together very happily, serving each other, serving humanity, and serving God. At places where they don't even allow religion, even there things are happening. Because it's so natural to the soul. The message of Bhagavad Gita is so universal. It is not for one geographical location. It is not for one kind of skin color, one kind of person, one kind of language. No. So it's very evident. And there have been many, many studies done. I'm sure you could look it up online when you go home. Any other questions? And the reason for that is because the basis is everything is based on the soul platform. We understand we're not this body, we're spiritual beings. So if we're all souls, parts and parcels of God, we're all brothers. And whatever is happening, of course there are frictions. Of course there are things that happen that need resolution. It's not like it's a happy, everybody's baking cakes with rainbows. Not like that. There are problems. But nevertheless, people, because they have the knowledge, they realize how the modes of nature act. How the behavioral aspect is not the person. Behavior is different from the person. And so even if something goes wrong, people help each other out, hear each other out, and fix those issues. So sociologically, yes, it has tremendous effect. In fact, when Srila Prabhupada came to Chicago, Chicago was still had the same issues with criminal problems. And the police chief consulted with Prabhupada. But how to get rid of these criminal activities? And it's very simple. One becomes Krishna conscious. All these problems one has is very easily eradicated. Why does one act? Why does one do crime? Because something there's missing. Everybody's looking for happiness. Everybody's looking for love. That is not there. And that's why one does something. Some people do bad things, some people do good things. Nevertheless, if it is not spiritual, one is not satisfied. And one keeps trying different routes to get the same thing.
You had mentioned that I could see some studies online. Just out of sheer curiosity, just to make the search a little bit easier, do you know any studies that you could sort of legend to me so that I can find them a little bit faster? Or
You can look up Lake Forest College. I know their religious studies class, they did something on us. They made some videos as well as reports. I don't know if they're downloadable or not. I get to meet these people when they come, but I've never personally looked up anything. But I know they make reports and stuff, so they do studies on us. Loyola University as well. Loyola, Lake Forest, Southern Illinois University. To look up these universities. Anything else? Anything from this slides? All right, we'll have dinner. Thank you very much.